Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This coming year, I think there's going to be 7 factors that are going to affect the market here in Victoria. So this is going to be kind of my outlook of what I see happening in 2024. I expect lots of you got lots of questions like, are mortgage rates going to keep going up? Or are they going to go down? What's going to happen there? What about property values? Where are they heading? Up, down, east, north, west? Who knows? A lot of people think there's a real estate bubble. So is it going to be a doom and gloom? What's going to happen? Are we going to have a crash? Well, anyways, these are my predictions, what I think is going to happen in this year. Sometimes actually my predictions even come right. Last year I started talking about, back in April, about the provincial government probably putting restriction on short-term rentals. Guess what? In the fall they did. So, hey, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but sometimes I do get things right. Okay, factor number 1. Interest rates. Bank of Canada, what's it doing? Well, no doubt this is one of the biggest factors affecting the real estate market in general. But more importantly, bond rates are really important because that's what determines your mortgage rates. Often the spread between the bond yield, and the most talked about one is the 5-year bond yield, which is currently at 3.3%. And usually the spread is between 1% and 2%. So the mortgage rates are usually 1 or 2% above the bond yield. And right now they're closer to, closer to 2%, because mortgage rates right now, I think you're probably lucky to get 5%, and they're probably more like 5.5%. Whereas the last time when the bond yield was actually around 3.25%, the mortgage rates were 4.5%. So there is room for improvement on the mortgage side of things. And I do think this year we are going to see lower mortgage rates, but I'm going to talk about that a lot more later on in the video. So key factor number 2 is inventory. Inventory is always really important. Real estate's a market, supply and demand. Properties actively for sale at the end of December were 2,132. That's about a 26% increase compared to December of last year. However, the volume was very low last December. So we're still, that 2,000 listings is still very much on the low side. And we had about a 9% decrease in sales last year compared to 2022. So sales were definitely off, and like 2022 was not like a really robust year as well for sales. Now, I found last year quite strange in some ways, because we had this increase in volume of listings. However, the buyers didn't show up because sales were off about 9% last year. And it's likely, I think there's no doubt about it, it's pretty much because of the interest rates. Prices did drop a bit, so you would kind of think that would make buyers jump in the market. But I think there's this kind of wait and see type of approach, because the Bank of Canada rate, would it keep going up? It doesn't, 100% affect mortgage rates, but mortgage rates have been rising too. Last year we were looking at as high as probably 6.5%, maybe even higher, depending on your term. Whereas right now the mortgage rates are between 5 and 5.5%. So I can see buyers starting to jump back into the market this year. I think mortgage rates will drop down this year. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later in this video. But it kind of created this very odd market where buyers were sitting on the sidelines, and sellers, a lot of them, they wanted to sell their property, but they didn't have to sell their property. So if they didn't get their price, they didn't sell. So where does that leave us for 2024? I think we're going to see an increase in inventory. I think price-wise, we might see a little bit of an increase next year. I think generally speaking, it's going to be a little bit more of a balanced market. However, to make it a true balanced market, we probably need to have it between about 3,000, 3,500 listings. Not sure if we'll get there. But in general, I think the real estate market is going to be much better in 2024 than it was in 2023. Key factor number 3, new housing starts. This one we might have to get a little bit political, but regardless, this is a thing in North America. We need more housing. It's not just here in Victoria. It's not just in Canada. It's a thing right across North America. There has not been enough housing built in the last 20, 30 years, whatever it is. BC government's trying, hard to mandating things like mandating the number of houses to be built in certain cities and municipalities. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I don't see how it's going to help. It's not going to hurt, but it's not going to solve the affordable housing crisis, as it's called. One good thing that has happened, though, is GST has been removed from the construction of new apartment buildings. So those will be rental buildings. That is a good thing. That should be a very good incentive for developers to build even more apartment buildings that have been built than in recent. We hadn't seen a lot of apartment buildings built in Canada, or particularly in Victoria, since the early 80s. So this is the last few years is the first time that I've ever seen really a bunch of apartment buildings built since then. So that's good. We'll talk a little bit about rental properties at the end, but the price of rent has probably gone up, maybe more so on a percentage basis than the cost of real estate. So here's the thing. Governments are trying to do a lot of things to create some more affordable housing, but to me, it's political window dressing. It makes them look like they're taking on the affordable housing crisis, but it's only a very small piece of it. Yes, eliminating Airbnbs and a lot of condo buildings. That's going to help. It's not going to hurt, but it's not going to solve the problem. In my opinion, affordable housing, and let's call it social housing because that's really what it is, needs to be built and run by provincial or federal governments. It's not up to the municipalities. They don't have the funds and never will. So what I see happen in 2024, yes, I think there's going to be more housing starts. I would definitely think we'll probably see some even more apartment buildings being built, although this does take time. And speaking of that, this is really one of the big things that needs to happen is local municipalities need to streamline the permitting process, right? Waiting, months or maybe years to get projects approved. That just can't happen. Definitely we're going to see more condo buildings built. I'm not sure about single family because in most locations, there's just not the space for it. There is room for townhouses, so I think we're going to see a lot of townhouses get built. I think may not get started next year, but they're going to head in that direction 100%. There certainly would be more condo buildings. If we take downtown Victoria, for example, there's been a lot of condo buildings built down there, right? And of course, their view of it is more the built, the cheaper things get. But the more density doesn't make real estate any cheaper. If it did, Vancouver would have the cheapest real estate. The West End of Vancouver would have the cheapest real estate in Canada. It's the most expensive. Most large cities that are really densified, Toronto, very much the same, New York City, that's where some of our most expensive real estate is. So densification is not going to really solve the problem here. Okay, key factor number 4, mortgage renewal rates. Mortgage renewal in 2024. Boy, there's a lot to unpack here. So popular mortgage terms are 3 and 5 years. So if you took a 3 or 5 year term that's coming up for maturity this year, here's kind of what to expect and how it's going to affect the market. So in February of 2019, the 3-year mortgage rate was about 3.25%. Because of the stress test, if you took out a mortgage then, you would have to qualify at 5.25%. We complain a lot about rules and regulations we have here in Canada, but I tell you what, the stress test, that is good business as far as I'm concerned, because we can see right now how it's going to come in play. So yes, you got a 3.25% mortgage back in 2019, but you actually could afford a mortgage at 5.25%. So for those coming up for renewal this year, they're going to, yes, their mortgage rate is going to be higher. They're not going to get 3.25 again, but they're going to likely get somewhere in the 4% range. So definitely they're going to be able to afford to keep living where they're living. Now, for those who have a 3-year term that's coming up for maturity this year, they might have had a mortgage rate as low as 1.4%. Yep, it was that low. So if the stress test, that would put them at 3.4, and there'd be no way they'll be getting 3.4 this year. So their payments are definitely going to go up. This is part of the reason why the doomsayers think there's going to be a big crash, right? Because we're going to have all these people renewing mortgage rates at much higher rates. Well, yes, they are, but they most likely will be able to survive that. However, if they can't afford it and they have to sell, well, values are up in the last 5 years, like 38%. In the last 3 years, 24%. So even if they can't afford it, they're going to be able to sell their way out of it because they got enough equity that, yes, maybe they don't want to do that, but they can sell their house and still get out of the financing situation that they're in without going into foreclosure. I've heard more than one person say, this is just going to be like 2008 all over again. There's going to be this great big housing crash and all the rest of it. But yeah, you know what? I don't see that happening. The reason being 2008 was really, that was in the United States. It affected Canada, but not all that much. That was out and out fraud. People were getting mortgages who didn't even qualify for the mortgages. At least here in Canada with our regulations, in most cases, the person applying for the mortgage has to qualify for it and do not get the mortgage until they've qualified and survived the stress test. So, but here's other things to think about too. If your mortgage is coming up for renewal and you want to keep the payments a little bit lower, you can reduce the amortization period. That will reduce your monthly payments as well. Like I also mentioned a minute ago, maybe your salary's gone up so you can afford a higher mortgage payment. And who knows, a lot of people, and particularly my generation, are inheriting money these days, and that's money that they can use to put down on the mortgage or pay off the mortgage as well. Yeah, and finally with mortgage renewals coming up, right, is a couple of things to think about for if you do have a mortgage when it's coming up. You're probably going to have to stay with your current lender. The reason being, in most cases, they do not, when your mortgage comes up for renewal, you don't have to requalify for it. As a matter of fact, I think there was some, for lack of a better term, I'll call laws going into place that were going to make sure that any bank could not make you requalify for your mortgage. So you don't have to worry about that. However, if you decide to shop around for mortgage rates, then if you go to a different lender, guess what? You're going to have to requalify for the mortgage you already have. So I think in probably most cases that you're going to stay with the bank that you're or lender that you're already at. Renewals in 2024, they're going to have an impact on the real estate market. It's hard to say how much, but I don't see a crash coming. So factor number 5 is affordability. And we hear so much about affordability in housing, whether it's owning your own house or even renting. Yeah, that is a big thing today, and rightly so. It's expensive, particularly in Victoria. However, I don't think the value of real estate is really the thing that's really affecting affordability right now. For example, we've had about a 13% decrease in values since 2022, and that'd be April 2022. So, it is a little bit cheaper to buy real estate right now. However, what has changed is the mortgage, the increases in the mortgage rates. That really affects things. Plus we have inflation and the cost of just, feeding your family, cost of rents, that sort of thing. So I don't see it getting much more affordable coming up this year, just because of, the price increases we're seeing, around us for the things that we need on a daily basis. Hey, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and also hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Okay. Factor number 6, investors. Yes, investors always play a role in the market. Are they going to jump back in the market this year? I think we'll see more investors than we've seen in past. And when I say investors, I'm talking about, somebody's buying real estate to rent it out and collect the rents and keep it for a certain period of time. I never really saw the Airbnb thing as a really investment. I mean, it's like running a business. And I've never really seen any example of anybody with an Airbnb having that more like a short-term rental, seeing that as more profitable than just renting out on a month-to-month basis if it's furnished. The reason being is your occupancy is not usually 100%, and plus all the work that goes into it. And then if you hire a property manager, they're going to take 30% of your rents as well. So anyways, that's a bit of a sidebar there. But back to like what I really feel that are true real estate investors. I think we'll see more of them jump into the market, particularly because any condo can be rented now because there's no rental restrictions. So that helps a lot. And with mortgage rates coming down, most cases the investor is going to put a mortgage on the property. So that's important. And so their payments there are going to be a little bit lower. And rents are certainly are not going down either. So I think we'll just see more investors jump into the market in 2024. And key factor number 7 is rentals. Rentals. So when I'm talking about rentals, I'm talking about the price of rent. So rents keep going up, and I think they continue will, just because we've got inflation right now. So it's more expensive as a landlord to run the property. So I don't see much change there. But at the lower end of the market, I really don't see much changing there, much improvement. Generally speaking, I don't think we're going to see any decrease in rents, and it's just going to continue to be a very tough area to find rentals here in Victoria. So it's a tough scene. What else can I say? Okay, thanks for watching. You hung in to the very end. Thank you very much. If you've got any comments, please leave in the comments below. I always respond. I'd like to hear from you. That would be fantastic. If you're thinking about downsizing, I'm going to leave a link in the comments below to a report I put together on making downsizing very easy. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.